What's funny is last time we did this, I completely forgot about doing my normal intro. Well, I do my normal intro that as we're going. Welcome everyone to another episode of Elbows Type Podcast. Your host Travis. But last time I completely forgot to say, please give me a 5-star review wherever you're listening to it. If you guys want Elbows Tight merch, like my sweet shirt, I'd rather be rolling. You could pick that up at elbowstight.com, or if you want one of my dad hats, elbowstight.com. And please, wherever you listen to Spotify, iTunes, or whatever, please give me a 5-star review. It really greatly appreciates and helps with the reach out. But with that all being said, Rudy, welcome back. How's it going, man? They don't know that this is a welcome back, but
They don't know. For people who don't know, like my schedule is incredibly hectic. Like we've been trying to get this podcast for like a month. I want to say, and
yeah.
it's really hard for me to break away from everything just to sit down. But hey, it's nice to finally be here again, and let's try to get through this one today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of like just start off where we started off, like a little bit how we did last time. Can you go ahead and let people know who you are and how you got into jiu-jitsu and everything like that at home?
Well, I'm General Millhouse, and I just started jujitsu, man, like 12 or 13 years ago. And the way it started is I kind of knew what jujitsu was. Like I had seen it, and my kid took interest in it. We happened to be in California, and we met Andre Galvao of all people, and we ended up at his academy. And Andre was like the nicest guy ever. And my son, like I said, he was interested in jujitsu, and me and Andre just had a conversation. At the time, I was still doing like competitive bodybuilding, so I kind of had like a thicker frame on me. And he asked if I had ever tried jujitsu. I said no, and he's like, "Well, do you want to stick around today?" And I was at the time I was like on vacation, so I was like, "No, dude, I don't want to try this out in the middle of a vacation. Like, just get my butt beat by a bunch of dudes, you know." And he's like, "Well, maybe when you go back home, you can try it out, and you might enjoy it." So what happened is I came back home and I found an Alliance Academy that was nearby, and yeah, that's where my journey really started. But Andre Galval has followed my journey in a sense of from the time that I started, from white belt all the way to black belt. I've DM'd him. I've sent him pictures of everything. So like he has acknowledged the story of like this is like yeah, it's
It's so crazy how things like that happen and you don't realize how big of an impact it makes on your life. You know what I mean? Like you were just like a byproduct of doing it for your son, and now here you are, a black belt. Do your son still train or
no. My son, my oldest, trains Muay Thai, and my youngest is a baseball player. So my youngest broke his arm actually in jujitsu. So that's yeah. It was like a really hard thing to negotiate with his mom, even though he was really good. Like competitive wise, he was good, but he didn't want to anymore after he broke his arm. So yeah, I'm not allowed that privilege. Not right now, at least.
yeah. So how is it like being a parent and then starting your journey with your child? Because I always talk about my son and I, my oldest, he started just like maybe a year or so after I did. He started training jujitsu when we opened up the kids academy or kids side of it. And I always say like, man, when you go through adversity as a family together, like something like hard like jujitsu, where you're constantly testing yourself, constantly putting in these hard things, like it like to me, it helped my son and I build like even a stronger relationship. And even now, he doesn't train, but I'm like, all right, time to practice jujitsu, bro. And I'll like grab him and like try things like that. And I think it builds like this camaraderie outside of like the typical dynamic of like a parent and child that I absolutely love. And it's something that I'm very grateful for. Have you ever felt that as well when you and your family were training?
I think like it made me understand. It gave me a better perspective of who my kids were and where they really how they dealt with pressure. Like where they absolutely just crumbled and where they just needed a little bit of help to get past either a situation and of course like we relate actual life into jujitsu, but that's kind of how it is. So I understand that if he meets a certain situation, both of my kids, if they meet a certain type of resistance or a certain type of difficulty, if I don't help them get past it, they're just gonna. So it helped me understand a little bit more of who they were and help me understand what my role as a parent to them should be.
What did when you first started jujitsu, coming from like a competitive bodybuilding, being big, strong, jacked, what did it teach you most about yourself that you were surprised when you first started jujitsu?
It taught me that I knew a lot, that I didn't know a lot of what I didn't know, right? It was like
Yeah.
so humbling because I was like 185, just thick and monstrous. And some dude that was like 130 pounds, like just put it all on me, like he just subbed me, he took my back, he choked me, and it was just humiliating, humbling, but I guess that's what you want, to learn the hard way that you just don't know, that you just can't like just grab some dude and toss him. You're not some superpowers going to take over you and you're just miraculously going to be a fighter. Like that's not real life. And I think it was for me just a rude awakening because I mean I was strong, but I had no idea how to defend myself.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Bradley Martin, the YouTuber, was all over social media talking about, he's 260, he'll beat all these professional fighters because he's so much bigger than them. And I'm like, that truly comes from someone who hasn't felt that 125-pound female just lay it on him. And like, when I first started training, her name is Riley, and she just recently left for college, but we trained together since she was like 13 years old, and her dad is a cop, and so she was doing like forearm across the face, like kneeling on our heads at like 13 years old. And I'm like, dude, I'm getting my butt whooped by this girl right now. Like it was once again, like, and I always say, like, you could use your size and your strength and stuff like that, but that doesn't benefit anyone. And that's just me ego rolling with her instead of me trying to figure out the problem. But dude, till this day, like I'm like, I don't know how to handle like some people just have your number. And like
Oh yeah.
I don't think I've ever submitted her, to tell you the truth. Okay, because she's a former gymnast too, like super flexible, and I don't know how to handle that. It's like, should I like break the arm? It's like, have you ever ran into people like that where you're just like, this is like, it's so. Besides when you were a white belt, even now, where it was just like so like, oh man, I can't believe this guy. Like he's just crushing me right now.
Oh yeah, dude. So like just right now, I was training. I have this training partner, and most people are like super surprised when I tell them my main training partners for like for a major camp or like a worlds or a any big tournament. It's actually a female, and she's about 115, 120 pounds. And dude, she will put some pressure on me. Like today, she just had me in side control where I was like, bro, just do something else
What do
because
you
I
want?
I can't get out. Right? I can't get out. She ended up taking my back because I was just stuck, and it's like you said, right? Yeah, ego rolling. Could I just cross face her and just like, yeah, of course, right? But what are we really benefiting? Like, does it benefit me or does it benefit her for me to just smash her from the mount? No, dude, like that was not a productive training session for either of us. And of course, she's a pro MMA fighter. So when it's my turn to get punished and we have to glove up, it's not very pleasant. It's shout out Andrea Amato if you watching this. Jesus, dude, this girl's promising,
That's
promising.
so that's so funny. So coming from being a first responder and then training jujitsu, like you mentioned when we talked last time that you were actually already a firefighter before you started training jujitsu. Has training jujitsu helped at all with the first responder side with anything that you've encountered with?
Oh yeah, I mean it's helped me just keep my cool, right, and keep my comfort. It helps me understand where I'm safe and where I'm not, right. So I understand distance, and I understand that if you get a little bit too close for me, that's a little too close for my comfort. Now I need to back away. And obviously, from a first responder standpoint, I'm not allowed or legally allowed to engage in like fights with people or try to take them down or try to restrain them, or that's not what we do. I mean, if there's a situation where we have to defend ourselves, and I mean, I can do that. I'm very capable of doing it without hurting anyone, which is to me like the biggest. Man, there's just no amount of security that I can just give to anyone other than just like, dude, if you train and you learn how to handle yourself in a pressured situation where there's just like emotions are running high and you can control your own emotions because you're okay and you can handle it. That I think that's what jujitsu helped me when it comes to like firefighting and being a paramedic on the ambulance and all that just helped me deal with stress.
Real quick, let's talk about the importance of salt and electrolytes for a BJJ practitioner. And that's where today's sponsor, Salt Electrolytes, come in. Save 15% off your purchase at saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout. Once again, that's 15% off at saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout, or use the link down below. Now, Salt Electrolytes drink mix is designed for today's warriors, athletes, and those who like to get after it and regularly get sweaty. Whether you're a heavy sweater that we've all seen on Instagram that needs a wet floor sign right next to them whenever they roll, or you're like a normal human being like me who barely sweats at all. With a light, refreshing flavor, Salt is great to drink during your workout because it will not coat your mouth that thick, nasty film that some electrolytes drinks out there do. It has the perfect saltiness that's as easily to make you want to drink more, making rehydration a breeze. And Salt keeps it simple, guys. There's only 6 different electrolytes with a touch of iodine to help maintain a healthy thyroid. There's no sugars, there's no colors, and there's no BS. So go earn your salt, guys and gals. And save 15% off your checkout at saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout. That's saltelectrolytes.com with code ElbowsTight15 at checkout to save 15% off. Because your electrolyte drink should work just as hard as you do. Thanks, guys. Go check them out. Yeah, when I was in the fire academy, they brought up a lot of good points when it comes to like the medical side of firefighting. And, they brought up like, sometimes you'll be administering help to people that you don't realize are schizophrenic, or they're going through like a diabetic episode. And then, you hit them with something and they wake back up and all of a sudden they're combative and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, I was like, man, we always talk about cops should be training jujitsu. And after going through the fire academy and now training jiu-jitsu, I'm like, man, I definitely feel like almost all first responders should be able to, or should be training jiu-jitsu, like you mentioned, to help deal with stress, distance management. If someone does, all of a sudden you have like someone that's going through something and you're trying to render help to them and they're like, going off on you. Like, do you feel like after, now that you've black belt and training for so long, like it definitely more first responders should be training on like the firefighting side?
Oh yeah, I mean, and I recommend that to not just first responders, but like medical healthcare providers. If you work in a hospital, you're going to deal with combative patients. If you work anywhere where you're just dealing with people who are either mentally unstable or in a medical crisis, you just never know how they're going to react. Sometimes even people who are running a fever, you'll see them go into like psychosis and stuff like that. So you have to be prepared to handle them, and it's just the amount of comfort, like I said, I just cannot stress enough the amount of comfort that I feel in knowing that I can handle people without hurting them in the event that I actually have to is, dude, like that. For me, it's just like all the security I need. I
Yep.
can treat people, and it's not just like, like we also have people who are like, um, what's the word I'm looking for? People who are, autistic, right? So like we have an increased case. I've noticed an increased case of autism kids, right? Autistic patients. And you have to be really careful how you handle them. And because you have to be really careful how you approach them, you're also very conscious of their body movement. And I think like in jujitsu, and I mean, obviously, I do put on some gloves from time to time. So I know what my vulnerable points are, where it's like, okay, well, look, if I try to approach this patient and I try to talk to them calmly and they don't like it, this is where I'm vulnerable. Like, this is where I'm going to get attacked. So just kind of be prepared to create some distance, back away, and try again, or see if you can approach the situation differently, the way you would in jujitsu, right? Like if you get
Right.
caught in an armbar, just probably don't go that way, dude. Go the other way. Like, but when you're a white belt on the mats, it doesn't click to you, and you're just like, well, maybe I'll just go harder, and then you get armbarred harder. And it's the same way in life. If you do not understand how to approach people, how to approach these situations, and you say, I'm just gonna power through, it's probably not the right idea. Like, just stop and think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the fire service, they have the fire triangle, and this I was thinking about this, right? So the fire triangle, you need these 3 things or 4 things if you want to do the tetrahedron,
Mhm.
to make a fire, right? So heat,
Right.
uh,
Carbon, oxygen,
oxygen, and then fuel, right?
fuel, and then
And then
chemical chain
chemical chain
reaction.
reaction. If you, yeah.
Correct.
And I was thinking, I was like, man, what would the fire triangle be for jujitsu? Because we have a lot of similar grappling arts. We have wrestling, judo, jujitsu, even aikido if you want to throw in
Right.
some of that stuff. In your eyes, what is the fire triangle for jujitsu that makes it jujitsu, right? Instead of, because if we remove one thing, like guard, if we remove one thing, then we're kind of doing more judo or wrestling. If we throw this in there, then it's jujitsu. You know what I mean? Like, if you, in your mind, what would be the three things or more that would make jujitsu jujitsu?
Judo, wrestling, and I would say like maybe even some sambo in there, maybe. But yeah, I think wrestling, and I'm like pretty guilty of it myself. You know, I don't work it enough because getting taken down. I'm 38 years old, man. Like it hurts. It hurts to get taken down. I don't like it, you know. But the hip movement, the concepts of where your head's going, I think that will all be extremely beneficial in jujitsu. So yeah, I would definitely say those three.
Yeah, and I was like thinking, I was like, man, where am I lacking in those threes? And it's like you said, like definitely wrestling is one thing that I wrestled a little bit in high school, and so I felt like I have a pretty decent base, but there's just a difference when you're like going against someone that has like, not even a collegiate, but even like high school state wrestler or something like that. You're going against them, especially as a white belt, and you grab them, you're like, oh, this guy's got something.
Oh
He's
yeah.
there's.
Oh
It's just
yeah.
like there's like, all right, wait a second, like there's something here.
You feel it when they touch you, man. When you have a wrestler who wrestled in high school or wrestled in college, like when you have a brand new white belt, like they're just really spazzy. But when you have a wrestler, he will definitely just club you hard and grab your wrist, and you know it's gonna be a wild ride. Like if you don't defend yourself, and a lot of times you may lose that battle, and then that's where your jujitsu is definitely going to have to start coming into play. You know, which guards are you going to play? How are you going to react? So yeah, that's
Yeah, my buddy Jordan teaches jiu-jitsu over on YouTube. He has a wrestling for BJJ like course with a D1 wrestler from Canada, and he's showed me a couple things of it, and I was like, man, these are great. And he has it. It's like a Kajabi course where you kind of like go through modules to go through it, unlike a BJJ fanatics thing. And I found stuff like that has helped me so much, especially like his jujitsu theory course, because it started making me think of like things that I wasn't doing properly. Like
mhm.
one thing he talks about a lot is like, don't let people grab your head. Right. And I was like, oh crap. He's like, because if they can control your head, then they can
Oh yeah,
basically can control your whole body. And I
yeah.
was like, oh man. So now if I'm rolling with someone and I'm on my back, I'm like, head is like slammed to the mat. I was like, they're not controlling my head. They're not controlling my head. Are there any things that you've noticed since you started training jujitsu that what were the biggest eye openers in your like conceptual learning that you realized when you were training for so long?
I think just like dumbing things down, right? Like just finding concepts. So instead of like finding, let me learn an armbar from here, let me learn an armbar, right, from different positions. I think it's easier to just understand that if I'm looking for a shoulder to sit on with your arm in between, I have an armbar. Like it doesn't matter where it comes from. And so when I was teaching the kids curriculum, that is one of the things that I would tell them, like look for a shoulder to sit on, and it doesn't matter where you are. You could be
That's
on the
such a
bottom,
great
you
way
could
to
be on
look
the
at it.
top, you can be in any position. If you can sit on a shoulder, you're going to catch an armbar or some sort of submission. You can get there. And I think I notice it, especially now that I understand or I see it with that concept. Like I see guys like Mika Gaval, and he can make that connection from literally anywhere. So he's not looking for an armbar, he's looking for the shoulder so that he can make that connection and get to these submissions. So yeah, just like concepts like that of breaking down things to the most simplest terms where it doesn't have to be that complicated. Like, dude, just look for a shoulder, sit on it, find the arm. It's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
great. I've never heard that one. I like that one a lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and and if you guys want, like, speaking of Jordan's courses, if you guys want $25 off, there's gonna be a link down below. Use my code, and you get $25 off on his courses if you want. So I saw you tag me in something, and I want to talk about this, and it kind of goes into your what you were just talking about learning. When it comes to lower ranks, some people are more conceptual learners. Some people are more they have to do auditory, physical, right? They have to get the reps in. How do you assess as a black belt and as an instructor the best pathway for your students to learn?
I think just understanding concepts and then breaking down mechanics of these concepts. Like, how well do you understand? So, in firefighting, we call them strategies and tactics, right? So, like, the strategy is maybe just offensive. We're just going to fight that fire, right? We're going to go in, we're going to fight it. What are the tactics? Well, that's going to be different. That's the actual details of what we need to do. Are we going to go in from the front? Are we going to go in from the back? Are we going to hit it from a window first? Like, those are the most relatable terms to me, at least in jiu-jitsu. And that's how I start analyzing the performance of the belts coming up. Do you understand that you need to grab the leg? Yes. Okay, can you grab it from here? Cool. Do you understand the mechanics, the breaking mechanics? Right. I know for me, when I left my previous team and I came to fight sports, I had already been a purple belt for so long where my professor was like, look, dude, you are just lacking in the leg lock department. You are so behind. We never played leg locks
Mm.
too much where I come from. And so he was like, if you cannot start engaging in these leg lock battles, you're not going to move up, dude, because you're just going to get destroyed at brown belt. And then once you get to black belt, you're not going to make it. So I had to start, learning these leg locks. And I realized how little I knew when I got to a competition and I got right into the saddle. I got into a heel hook position and I had this dude's heel and I was like cranking with everything I've got, things that you would typically tap to in class. If I grab your heel in class, you'll probably tap,
Yeah,
right?
you wouldn't even fully lock it in. I'm good.
You're gonna tap. You're gonna tap, right? But what that builds is bad habits for me because now if I'm actually trying to break your leg, I don't know how because everyone else, like, I'm like, hey, dude, usually they tap here. Why aren't you tapping?
Yeah.
And then now I'm trying to break your leg, and then now I can't. So for me, that was like a big problem, like understanding mechanics. So I had to like really take the time to start understanding mechanics. And once I broke the mechanics of like leg locks, I was like, oh, dude, maybe I need to go back and revisit the mechanics of like an armbar, revisit the mechanics of like a guard pass. And then once you start really looking at the details of what you are doing, it'll change your jujitsu because you just have to pay attention to your own movement.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. And I think a lot of people undervalue being a good partner. You know what I mean? When it comes to rolling or when it comes to technique and stuff like that, because I've definitely been in very similar situations where uh, I'm not going for a submission. I already know it's not fully locked in, or someone just taps because of they feel like they can't escape, and or that they were just I isolated the arm, and they're like, okay, I'm good. You got to keep
Mhm.
going. And I understand like there's pros and cons to that. Definitely for longevity, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
You don't want to fully extend the arm all the time. But me as your training partner, I do need to get that rep in.
right.
I do need to finish it every once in a while, like, you know what I mean? Is that something that you kind of struggle with as a partner and as someone that teaches, is like letting people finish the submission or backing off too early?
Yeah, because then if you don't feel exactly what your limit is, where you're like, okay, now it's gonna break, and you tap to everything early, when you're in competition, a lot of these guys they don't know how to finish a submission. Like they'll get there, but you can get out of it because of the same reasons. And a lot of times a lot of people won't know how to fight out of submissions because they never had to. They just surrendered once they got there and they're like, okay, it's an armbar, it's done. Okay, dude, yeah, but there's escapes. And yeah, everyone learns an escape or two or three from an armbar, but have you ever actually had to use it? And a lot of these guys coming up, they really don't, unless you have like a really competitive blue belt or purple belt or brown belt. A lot of these escapes are just in theory, right? So unless you actually test these different sequences out, you're not really going to know what works best for you because a lot of times escapes or techniques in general that work better for you may not be the same for me. So you have to put them up to battle and yeah, finding a good training partner that's going to take you to these limits. It can be hard for sure.
What kind of value do you put on uh, live training versus conceptual or technique driven? Like, do you feel one is more important than others, or are they 50-50 in your mind, or how do you view those two things when it comes to training?
Well, I mean, live training, we're trying to get down the techniques that we talked about. and we're trying to see if you understand. So I think you really, more than anything, I would say jujitsu is like 80% understanding and the other 20% actually doing it. Because if you don't understand the technique, you don't understand what you need to do, you're never going to get there. And I think what a lot of people get wrong is I will teach them a technique, or not just me in general, but like anyone can teach them a technique, and then they won't work it. They'll just go on to just, all right, let's go live roll, and then they will work what they are good at. It's like, dude, you're already good at it, right? You might not have it perfect, but you're definitely good at it. Why don't you work
Guilty.
what you should? Yeah. Why don't you work what you just learned in class? Like, that's a little bit more impressive. If you can hit the technique that we just talked about in class, that would be a lot more impressive than you hit the same, I don't know, loop choke or whatever that you do all the time, you know?
So as like someone that sees that happening, do you try to do more like positional rounds for the technique of the day, or are you, when you're done teaching technique, they get their reps in, are you just going straight to open live sparring?
If I'm teaching the class, for sure I will do more positional type training. Now, I do know that there are other instructors who prefer more just live role, right? And so, what you have to do with that is you have to create the position, you have to give up the position. And a lot of times, people are too prideful to do that.
Oh,
So,
100%.
if you are trying to work a mount position, obviously, so like the way I try to explain it, especially to like upper belts when they're like, hey, how did you work this? Well, dude, no one's going to want to sit there and drill with me. And honestly, I think drilling is kind of like a bit of a waste of time. If you already understand which way your body needs to go, it's kind of a bit of a waste of time, I think, right? So I think if you have an idea of your body mechanics, which way you need to move, then you need to start rolling with lower belts and put yourself in a situation where now you can use the mechanics that you learned or you studied earlier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. But like you mentioned, that can be very. People talk about leave your ego at the door in jujitsu and whatnot, and no one does, right? And if we're going to be honest, like everyone, they tone it down. I'll say they tone it down. Most people tone down their ego. But if say I'm a purple belt, right? Well, not, say I am a purple belt, and if I'm rolling with the white belt, sometimes it does kind of sting when I put myself in those bad positions, and then all of a sudden, they're submitting me, and I'm like, ah, dang it, man! Now they're going to go home with that victory, and like now they're
Yeah.
going to think that they got me. You know what I mean? But then I'm like, well, honestly, I could submit them right now if I wanted to, but that's not going to, kind of like when we went back to earlier, but that's not going to do anything for me or them. I was like, so, having that humility to know if I'm working on something, I'm going to get caught. Our,
Yeah.
our, our instructor, Keegan, he's a purple belt also, and when he's about to teach something the next week, he's live rolling, getting there as much as possible and getting submitted as much as possible by, our peers and whatnot to test it and to see how it's going to work when he teaches it next week. I'm like, that's so smart. I don't coach right now, but I'm like, that's smart, man. I think more people should do that just in their journey in general.
Yeah, because you have to understand, right? And it goes back to like understanding the technique, understanding how can this technique go bad. I literally just posted a video this weekend of me getting caught. I mean, I don't really want to put out there exactly what it is that I'm working on, but I'm working on some stuff, and this blue belt or purple belt caught me in like a nasty twister, and it's like, well, yeah, dude, that's kind of what you're supposed to be doing. And a lot of times people will kind of like down talk it like, oh, you're supposed to be this higher belt, you're not supposed to get caught. And it's like, well, dude, I mean, like, there's a difference in what we're doing, right? And my proof is I've been on a world's podium. If I go to your profile and you're saying weird things like that, dude, like, I better see some really, really high achievements on your profile, or else, I mean, are you just a mat killer in your own mats in your own gym? Like, that doesn't really mean anything to me, right? Because it doesn't mean that what you're actually doing is getting tested on a battlefield. You're just testing it out on people you already know it's gonna work. Let me see you do it somewhere else, you know but yeah.
So that brings up a good question that I like to ask a lot. And when it comes to being an instructor, how high do you view accolades as an instructor? Because I always talk about like an Olympic weightlifter, because I come from like the weight training background. Like every Olympic weightlifter or Olympian, their coach isn't an Olympian. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, just because they're not an Olympian doesn't mean that they don't fully understand what it takes to get to that level.
Mhm.
How high do you feel accolades are when it comes to coaching prowess and then knowing if someone's a good coach or not?
Oh man, I think you have to find a coach who will find that balance of understanding. So, like for example, like you look at guys like Danaher, and you look at Gordon Ryan, right? Dude, I can go down the books. I've never seen any of the books with Danaher's names on it. But if he's able to teach Gordon Ryan, so you have to find someone who truly understands the game. And I mean, I'm pretty sure he can do a lot of things. I've never seen it, but I'm pretty sure he can. Just 80%, it's that 80% of understanding jujitsu, understanding the techniques, and being able to communicate that, right? So, like an instructor like that probably won't work for me because my attention span is so small. And dude, I've had some instructional work. Like, I'm like, dude, what did he say 20 minutes ago? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, dude, I don't understand, dude. Like, we're too far into this, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with an instructor who is knowledgeable and an instructor that speaks your learning language, right? Because if you have a short attention span, dude, I can't take you for a ride and tell you like this is this sequence. Like I have to build it up. So if you don't find an instructor that speaks a language that you truly understand, then it's doesn't matter how good that dude is. Does that make sense? Like
Oh yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to the connection has to be there, and it has to be on both sides. Just because he's a good instructor for your friend doesn't mean that he's actually going to work for you. And that's why you see it at around purple belt, where people just kind of start separating their roots, where they came from, and maybe start exploring other academies because you realize that, like, okay, dude, I'm starting to understand a little bit of what I'm supposed to do, but I'm just not really learning it from this person. Maybe I will try exploring another team, and that's how changes start to happen. In my experience, that's kind of like the pattern that I've noticed.
Yeah. I don't remember who I talked to your point. It was a it was a while ago. Maybe it was I forgot who it was, but he was talking about how back in the day, in like the 90s, it was like you got your blue belt from someone and then you kind of switched academies because it was kind of like, all right, now it's time to go learn from someone else. How do you view loyalty and lineage as someone that's been through two academies? And I mean, I've gone through like three different black belts at my academy. We've gone through quite a few of them. Until my buddy Cody just got his black belt, and now he's like the main one. How do you view lineage and loyalty within jujitsu?
Man, I think it's really difficult if you're going to decide that you want to be a competitor, or we'll put competition aside, right? If you truly want to learn about jujitsu and your instructor has only studied gi and that's it, and you also want to explore no gi, it's not disloyal to want to learn a different style, right? The way I view loyalty in jujitsu is like I recently had this conversation with a buddy of mine, Steve Galvez. He's probably going to be upset because I said his name, but so like the loyalty when it comes to jujitsu doesn't it goes far beyond just me staying at your academy, right? Like it's a connection that we build. I can't say that hey, I showed up to your academy and just because I paid dues here, now I have to be loyal and you have to be loyal to me. It's like a commitment that you make to each other, right? Um, so when we begin to talk about loyalty, a lot of people feel that they're kind of scared to leave their academy because they're going to lose the friendship or they have to be loyal to an academy. And it's like, no, dude, like if you absolutely feel that this is not working for you, you can leave to another academy. And if they stop talking to you, then you weren't friends, dude. Like it was a business interaction that you misunderstood, right? I left my team. I come from Alliance, and I'm like super open about it. And they're all still friends with me. They're all still very amicable with me, right? I left because I had reasons where, look, due to scheduling, if I continue training at Alliance, I'm only going to train once a week because of the schedule here. Now, if I go and explore this other style over here, fight sports is still in my town. Is I would say we're the most com- competition active academy out of my city, right? So now if I say, okay, so if I stay here, I'm only going to train once a week and I still want to be a competitor. So I'm going to go out to Pan Am's and Worlds and compete with training once a week. Dude, that's not even realistic, right? So how is it going to be disloyal for me to say, hey, my loyalty to you needs to survive based on one training session a week and I expect you guys to like that's not how it's going to work. Like they need a your academy needs to make a commitment to you so that you can make that commitment to them. I don't feel that it was necessarily disloyal for me to leave the team. It was just, it's in my best interest and it's kind of in your best interest. And we're still on good terms. I can still go back to Alliance today and train. I can still drop in, and my instructor is still okay with me. We still have conversations about my competition. He will still come up to me and talk to me about, hey, I saw your competition footage. I think you should try this. And I think that's loyalty. When you can maintain that friendship and you approach everything with respect and say, hey, look, these are my reasons why I have to leave. It's nothing personal, it's nothing against you. If you can approach situations like that, I think you'll have better outcomes.
Yeah, and I think the dogma of loyalty, like it was back in the day, is leaving the community quite a bit. There are still some people out there. Obviously, you'll see it on social media all the time. That'll you got to be loyal to who gave you your belt at whatever for whatever reason. And I don't know, man. I have a lot of friends in the jiu-jitsu community. I've been doing this podcast for 5 years. Like, there's a lot of people that I've talked to that I want to go train with, and you know, Cody, my instructor, one of my best friends, he lets people come to us and lets people like let us go hang out with other academies, and like there's nothing wrong with that at all. You know what I mean? But I have had some talk to some people where they're like, nah, man, I've tried to my instructor has blatantly said like no one's allowed to come here. And I kind of feel like it's kind of like protecting their community from the outside, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like they don't want their blue belts or black belts or whatever to get exposed by someone outside of their academy. They want to stay within their little ecosystem. Have you ever seen that before?
I think maybe it comes down to an insecurity of the instructor, right? Of saying, like, okay, if my students go, let's say you're a blue belt and you go and you train at another academy and all the blue belts, they're destroy you, you're gonna be like, dude, I should probably go train over there. And I mean, like, right? You're like, they're learning the secret sauce that I'm not learning here at my secret place, right? So that's how people kind of start branching out. And it goes back to what I was saying that right at about purple belt, you're like, hey, dude, maybe you don't speak the same languages. Maybe this isn't working out for me, right? And yeah, it comes down to like an insecurity of the instructors trying to hold on to their students is what I've seen. Now, there's no such thing as like a secret jujitsu where it's like we're all learning the same thing. We really all are. There's maybe different setups, maybe different approaches that we can take, but we're all learning the same jujitsu, right? And there's nothing wrong with being exposed to it at an open mat or maybe even at a drop-in class. I rather go like I said, I have open doors everywhere and I approach everything super respectfully. I'm really careful about what bridges I burn. If I burned a bridge, they probably deserve to be burned, right? But I can go drop in at Gracie Ba down the street. I can go drop in at Tom DeBlas Academy. Tom DeBlas Academy is like Tom DeBlas is like super friendly to me everywhere I run into him because I've dropped into his academy so many times. He's just like, dude, I thought you were one of mine. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, dude. I train there all the time. I apologize. But like it's just how you approach it. And because I compete a lot, I rather see what they're learning, just kind of get exposed to it and deal with it in a training room than paying thousands of dollars to go on a trip and compete and be like, dude, I've never seen this lapel guard in my life ever. How do I deal with it? Right. So I'd rather just kind of like work on it and cross train. I do believe in cross training. I mean, I even cross train with a lot of 10th Planet guys because their system is like, dude, it's just like, I don't understand it, but I want to. So I'm in there and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how are they setting up their, I don't know, like a double dead orchard, whatever they call it. I don't know what it is, dude, but I'm just like, yo, this sucks to be in. How do I get out of this? Right.
Yeah. So how as a heavy competitor, how do you balance cross training and not showing your A game to your possible competitors in your area?
I think so like I had this conversation with Andy Varela one time, like when my social media kind of started like doing well and started getting a lot of views. I asked Andy, I was like, hey dude, how do you do it to like hide your hand, right? Like how do you do it to hide what you're going to be using in competition? He's like, I want them to see it.
Mm.
You're not going to hide it. Let them see it. And if I'm that good at it, I'm going to get it anyway. It doesn't matter what you do. Like now it's my challenge. So I think at that point, I was like, dude, whatever. I'll just put it all out there. And like I said, if I studied my game and I understand it well enough, it doesn't matter what you do. I'm still going to play my game. A lot of times when people go and compete, they're so caught up in what is my opponent going to do that they stop doing what they want to do. And then they become reactive instead of being proactive in their game, which is really how people begin to get caught. And I mean, I'm guilty of it sometimes myself. It happens to the best of us, but you just have to do your best to not play into that game.
Yeah, yeah. My instructor, he's a Carlson Gracie black belt. He's like third down from Carlson. It's crazy, and he talked about it, and he was saying during the instructor one time, like some people might get upset about this or disagree, but he was like, "Don't work both sides for this technique." He's all like, "Get good at one side, and then if people want to beat you, they have to beat you at your good side." He's all like, "Don't be wasting time going back and forth." He's like, "Just get good at one side, and then people have to beat you on that side." Is that something that you kind of view, or how do you view that mentality?
I definitely have a weak side, like everyone else. I think
Definitely.
I have. I think I have like a. I think I have like a black belt left with like a purple belt right. So it's like
I call it my
that's
non-jujitsu side. I'm like, great, now I
that's
gotta do my non-jujitsu
That's the
side.
best way. But I have noticed that I do have more success trying to play to my opposite side as well. So it's just something that I've had to build. And I don't know, maybe it just started later on, like when I was a brown belt, where I was like, hey, dude, I have to really start working on passing to the other side as well. And that's how your game becomes like this multi-dimensional game, they call it, right? Where you can start working both sides, you can start attacking from everywhere, and it opens up your horizons. But yeah, I agree. If you're not even good at it on one side, dude, you're gonna waste your time trying to get good at it on both sides. Like, understand the mechanics, understand your body movement, get good at it, get at least proficient at it in one side before you start trying to throw in and add to the mix and get good on both sides. And I mean, just get understand it first, get good at it, and then you can go on to the other side too.
Do you ever plan on opening your own academy?
Not anytime soon. I don't feel that I'm done like chasing my dreams. Sounds like super cliche, right? But I'm not.
I
I'm
like
not
it. I
done.
like it.
I'm not done chasing my goals. Like I'm like, dude, I'm 38. I had kids young, so I had to put my whole life on hold. So now I'm starting to like really compete. Now I'm starting to really get out there and do what I really want to do because I had to, put my life on hold so that they can, I can provide for them and do all the young parent stuff. As far as opening my academy, I feel like if you're going to open your academy, it's the same thing. It's like raising a child, right? You really need to put your goals on a back burner so that you can really focus on helping others build their goals. And I'm not ready to do that. I mean, I love coaching, I love teaching, I'll do seminars, I'll do classes, I'll do all that. That's cool. But when you're gonna make that commitment to someone else and a group of people where now their journey is on your shoulders, dude, that is like so. Like, fun fact, my instructor, he's a black belt out of Fight Sports Miami. So there is times that he takes off to Miami for like a month at a time, or he'll go and he'll coach a fight, and then I'll get stuck with like at times like the whole academy, like coordinating the curriculum, who's going to teach what classes are covered, who's going to teach what technique so that the guy the following day can train it to, you know what I mean, like build onto that. I realized that jujitsu for me is incredibly fun until it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
Once it becomes like a job where you have to be there at 9, you have to be there at 6, you have to be there at 7, and then you have to deal with the complaints over here, and then this guy doesn't like what you taught, and then this guy wants basically a private after class, and then this guy wants you to listen to his life problems, and you're like, dude, all this for $100 a month, like come on, dude, no. No, it's just for me at this point it's not very like on the table. And then on top of that, like I still have way too much going on. I still have a few years before I can retire from the fire department.
Yeah, you don't want to be someone's guidance counselor, their therapist, their financial advisor.
No, no, and so like it goes back to like this is what I was saying that my conversation with my buddy Steven Galvez, who's out at Logic, out in like Tacoma area, and he was like, when you talk about loyalty to a gym. Like, you're not understanding the investment that I'm making, right? Like, you think it's just a financial upfront. He's like, but you're not seeing that after class, like, your time technically is from 6 to 7, dude. After that, I'm done, right? He's like, that's from the student perspective, but from the instructor perspective, you still have people who basically want a whole private after class, and you have to be there, and then you have to get them ready for competition, and then you have to, like, if you have goals that you're chasing as a competitor, you can't really focus on your training as much because now you have a whole bunch of people, like a group of people, that it's your job. You took that responsibility to build them up, and if they fail, it will reflect on your academy numbers, and then it's like a big snowball effect, right, where the problem just gets bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you have a heavy competition focus right now. When it comes to competing, what does your preparation look like when it comes to say you got a competition 8 weeks out? What do you do? What just arbitrary number of time? What are you doing when you're getting ready for competition?
So, like, we talk about camps and stuff like that, but I think it's just like a word that we use because there really is no off season for us. Because if I'm competing in, like, I'm actually competing like in 3 weeks in Mexico, right? I've been training nonstop 2, 3 times a day for the past 3 months because my teammate had like an MMA match. And then after she's done, then I have her husband who also has an MMA match. So we're constantly just training nonstop. And it's not fair for me to expect them to be there on demand when I need tough training and me not be there for them when they need the tough training. So it kind of like, I mean, is it hard on the body? Yeah, it's hard on the body, dude. Like, I feel it. I'm 38 years old. Of course I feel it, right? But it comes down to managing my time. And if I feel that I have a important tournament coming up, then I will focus specifically on building those positions that I want to create, that I feel like I'm good at, that I want to work so that I can try to execute in tournament.
So when it comes to game day, you're getting ready to be on the mats. Are you listening to music? What does your preparation look like? Like you're getting ready for that day.
For me on game day, I'm usually sick. I don't
I
know
saw the
why,
keys
dude.
in that post.
Dude, I don't know why. And like I don't know why, dude. Like every single time I've competed, I have like COVID or I'm sorry guys, but chances are if you've competed against me, I'm sorry. Dude, like for like Master Worlds for the past 3 years, I've had COVID every single time, dude. Or when I
You're now
showed up to,
blacklisted.
dude, yeah, right. Oh, dude, put it on my tab, right? Put it on my tab. But like, so like for Nogi Worlds, I usually don't like hanging out in a city. So like, I function better under stress. So I like self sabotage, right? I like flying in and I'll get there at around 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. I'll drive straight to the venue or get like an Uber. I'm there and then I'm like still under stress where I don't have time to focus on
Mhm.
what's my opponent gonna do. What? No, dude. I'm there at 7. I flew in. I don't know if I have all my stuff with me. I hope the like airline didn't lose it. Get it from the airline, get in the Uber, get to the venue, compete, and I'm flying back out at 6 p.m. Every time. Like that's how I do it. Do I listen to music? Yeah, dude. But the reality is, I don't have time to like get in the zone or get. No, dude. I'm just like I prefer. It's because I know that I function best under stress with a lot of like a chaotic environment. I just prefer it that way.
What's your go-to between the headphones?
Oh man. Um, I would say Wu Tang.
Yeah.
Wu Tang. If I'm feeling like flowy, it's definitely, and I got that from Roberto Jimenez. We were at Pan Am's, and one day that's all we listened to for like. I was like, dude, do you have something else you can throw on? Shit, put something else on, dude. And ever since then, I was like, hey, you know what? Method Man by Wu Tang. Every time, that's probably gonna be what I'm gonna go to. Even though
Classic, man.
I'm not gonna listen to it, like I have a big old chaos going on around me. It's probably gonna be Method Man by Wu Tang.
So as someone that's prominent on social media now, do you find it difficult to not look up your opponents if you know who they are in advance?
No, dude. I try not to look anybody up because, like I said, so I made the mistake my first match at black belt, and I hadn't done it before. and I mean, I do okay. Like everyone else, like I'm not amazing at competition. I think I lose for sure. I lose more than I win. But when I win, you guys are gonna get the highlights for
That's
months. I
right,
don't
baby.
care. For months, it's the same one, right?
I hit a
I
bolo.
don't
I hit a
care.
bolo.
I don't care. It's gonna be that same dude's face every time in the highlight. But that's brutal. It's the truth, right? It is what it is. But no, dude, I try not to look it up because what happens is if I look you up and I see that you pull guard every single time, and then we compete and you haven't pulled guard and it's been 30 seconds, I'm gonna panic. I'm gonna panic and I'm gonna be like, oh, dude, this guy's gonna do something different, and I'm not worried about what I'm gonna do anymore. Like I'm no longer focused. I'm more worried about how what are you gonna do so that I can react instead of engaging into what I want to do. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I go into a match, every single match. I do have like a theory of like, okay, I'm gonna go in and this is what I'd like to do. And if it doesn't work out, then this is how I will react to it. This is gonna be like the plan A game, this is the plan B game. Will it work? I don't know. It usually never does, and it usually just a whole disaster. But when it goes according to plan, dude, like I end up doing well and it's not that bad.
How do you handle losses, especially now as a black belt, to where you don't get that like imposter syndrome? Because I know a lot of people that compete if they get they do a couple competitions, they get their butt kicked. They're like, oh man, like what am I doing? Like, or even if they win a couple and then do bad, you know what I mean? They'll be like, oh, I'm crushing it. And then they go lose and they're like, wait a second, that's not supposed to happen. How do you maintain that like level head through victories
Oh
and
man.
losses?
There's this guy. His name is Kimoy Anderson, rated R, right? And I think everyone needs that friend in their life. The way I handle losses is I know, good or bad, after every tournament, I have to make that phone call and I have to explain it to them. And he's going to tell me, like, hey, dude, if you sucked, that's because you didn't stick to your plan. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. So now you need to go back. We need to watch film and we need to talk about what you did wrong here so that we can analyze it. But am I going to feel sorry about myself, dude? No, because I can only control how I prepared. I cannot control the outcome. That's all I can do. If I can look at a tournament and say, you know what, I prepared well, I showed up, I fought great, the dude was just better, no shame. But if I showed up and I was like, no, I was so worried about what he was gonna do. I was just absolutely I think that's only happened one time that I showed up to a tournament, and it was last year at Brown Belt at Master World. This dude came from like I do not mean to be disrespectful. He came from like Japan or China. I don't know where he's from, dude. But he had like a big old bag with all his stuff. Where he obviously just came from the airport, and this dude just dominated me. Dude, I fought well, but the dude just dominated. And when I walk away from performances like that, I'm like, well, it is what it is, dude. What can you do? I prepared well. He was better. Let's
Yeah.
analyze the tape. And so, like now, a rule that I have, me and Kimoy Anderson kind of came up with this thing where I told him, like, he told me, he's like, hey, if we show up to a tournament and there's only three, and you end up on the podium, you better take that medal off and give it back because you didn't win anything, dude. So that's like a rule that we have, and we try to keep it honest. And I think honestly, that's why my social media kind of like started growing because I'm honest about it. You know, like I'm not gonna just show me beating up on some dudes. Like that's not because that's not realistic, dude. Like that's not relatable. That's not jujitsu. You don't go into your mat room today in class and you're gonna beat everyone there. You're gonna lose a few matches, and it's okay. Like you just okay, dude. You just move on to the next. What are you gonna do? You know.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece of advice that has helped you the most for competition, and who gave it to you?
Mm. The biggest piece of advice is to fight for the submission. Always fight for the submission. Don't fight for points. Don't fight for anything other than submission. You're fighting to win. That's it. And that was from Roberto Jimenez's dad, actually, Gacho Jimenez. And he was like, because a lot of times, if you're just fighting for points, you're playing a stall game and you don't even know if the ref likes you because even if he doesn't know you, maybe you're just wearing the wrong patch. Maybe you're from an academy where maybe he doesn't like Cyborg. Cyborg is in Miami, dude. Like, he has no worries about what I'm doing in Texas. But maybe because he doesn't like someone that fight sports, and I was playing the stall game, and that dude doesn't like fight sports, I'm gonna take an L. So I was just told by him one time, look, dude, fight for the win every time. If you're fighting to win, the points will automatically add up. Why? Because you're not playing that stall game, you're not playing a defense game. Obviously, if you're up by a million points and you just can't get the sub, well then all right, well then just slow it down a little bit, right? Use your common sense. But don't fight just to gain points. Don't fight to just barely win. Like you're there to do a job, just get it done.
So what's the biggest tip that you give your students when they talk about competing? Is this the same thing?
Yeah, I always tell them like we're there, and you're there to fight for your submission. Fight for your submission, and if you set up your game the way that you'd like to, then you can basically get to whatever submission is allowed. Don't fight for things that aren't there. That's one thing that I'm really strong about. You know, like I have a lot of students, and I guess you can blame a little bit of Instagram for it. You know, where they see like this guy is always shooting like I don't know flying arm bars or maybe a certain finish. It's like, dude, yeah, you don't have to do that. If it's not there, stop fighting for things that aren't there. Fight, you know, fight to win, but don't go chasing things that are just not existent. Create the position, and if it shows itself, do it. But don't do it just because you want to do it. You know, like
Right.
it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. It reminds me of like when you watch white belts or junior belts compete and they both just grab sleeve collar or double collar and it's just rams locking horns and they're just like throwing each other around and like no one's doing anything. And then 45 seconds later, they're both like standing there like Ricky Bobby, like, I just don't know what to do with these because their
Yeah.
forearms are shot. And I tell
Oh,
people, I'm like, if you're going to compete, I've only competed one time at blue belt, and I'm sure people at home are tired of hearing this. But my whole goal, uh, for competing wasn't to win. It was not to blow my grips out every match in the first 30 seconds and not to get submitted. I ended up getting submitted in my last match because I was so exhausted. I had like cut weight. I was empty stomach. I had no one there telling me what was going on. So I was completely oblivious to what was happening. But I didn't blow my grips the entire time, which was a big W for me because I knew that was like such a bad thing for people when they first compete, man.
so that's the idea, right? So like you got a little bit better. You learned, okay, maybe I should conserve my energy. Maybe I should breathe a little bit different, or maybe I can instead of holding on for that to that one grip for dear life, let it go. Grab another one, dude. Like just losing grips doesn't mean losing one grip. It's called grips. It has an S at the end, right? You can change it, grab different grips, but that's progress. Now, I, fighting to not lose, fighting to not get submit. And but that's also growth, right? Because you learn from it. You're like, okay, dude, well, okay, now maybe I should start fighting to win, right? Because it goes back into like you're not fighting to just barely win. You're not fighting to survive. You're there to win. Like you want to get on the podium too.
No,
Why? Because that's
100%. Yeah.
probably, dude, like that's what we're all doing here, right? Like, let's not get ourselves or I mean, yeah. So it's all growth. Competition is good for everyone. Does everyone handle it different? Yeah, I know people. I've seen like adults, grown adults, crying, right outside of worlds. And maybe to them it means a lot more than it does to me because I'm not, although I do compete a lot, I'm not all in on this. Like if jujitsu doesn't work out, it's okay, dude. Like I still have a career. And if that career ever didn't work out, it's okay, dude. Like I'll have another backup plan. Like it's all right, but yeah, I can see how it can definitely be hard on people emotionally and just like destroy them when they lose. I've seen it. It's not pleasant. It's been guys who I've respected and I still do, but for me to see you cry over losing a match to me is like, dude,
Yeah.
I
So,
don't know. That's not that bad, dude. It's really not that bad.
I don't know, man. I've definitely been in class sometimes where it's like was a rough night. Everyone smashed me. I felt like a complete waste of space. You know what I mean? I've definitely like rolled the windows up. Somehow it started raining. I put some sad music on. You know what I mean? Like it's in the
Cutting
middle of
onions
summer.
in here.
I'm just like, I'm not good. Sometimes you get into feels, man. Like
Yeah.
so, but what's your next big goal for your jujitsu journey? Then, are you trying to obviously win black belt worlds and stuff like that?
So
But like, what are
yeah,
your goals?
black belt Nogi Worlds is ultimately the goal. That's where I'd like to be. And nogi, I just recently started competing in nogi. And everyone who knows me personally will tell you that a lot of the jokes I make about nogi guys on social media, it's actually how I feel. Like I really don't like nogi at all, dude. I just had to start training nogi because all my training partners are nogi people. So I like you have a choice to make. Either you stick to what you're good at and you only train with a few people, or you get to expand. So with that said, I started competing in nogi, and I just started doing a lot better at nogi than I did in gi. So my goal is ultimately to win a nogi at black belt in master division. I don't know if, I mean, it is what it is, but that's my division. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I'm
I
trying
I, I want to
to.
compete at Masters Worlds sometime soon. Uh, but like I like today I was supposed to go train, but I wasn't able to go, and so it's like, well, if I'm gonna make it a goal to compete at like something like Master Worlds, I need to be like super serious with my training. I can't be going twice a week and having fun all the time. And there, I
Mhm.
definitely need to lock it in and know for sure, like, okay, this is the date. This is when I want to do it and give myself the best opportunity. Because even though I said like I didn't want to, my goal was not to get submitted and like wasn't necessarily to win. Like the reason I say that is because I didn't want it to be like you mentioned, like the end all be all. Like this was a complete failure because I didn't win. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
was trying to set like small goals in order for me to see the W's in the L's, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I feel like that a lot of people will harp so much on the overall loss or the overall win and then not see the small things that they could do better or that they did right.
Yeah, I think if your goal, and this is just my advice to you, if your goal is to win a major title, or win at a major tournament like that, you have to play the preseason too. You can't just show up
Yeah.
for game day on just Super Bowl day and then you're like, why didn't I do good? Well, dude, because you didn't do preseason. And these guys you're competing against that are up on the podium, they're doing the preseason, they're doing the regular season, they did the off season, they did all that work, and then they showed up to playoffs, and then they showed up to the Super Bowl, right? So like a lot of times you show up to these major tournaments and you're like, damn, dude, how did I do so poorly? Well, because you didn't have the reps. You didn't find out what was working in competition until you found out, and it was too late, dude. You're at Super Bowl. Not gonna work now. What good is it gonna do for you, right? So you have to do the reps. I've tried to stay as active as I possibly can. I've even expanded to like competing for the ADCC Opens. Like I said, I'm going to Mexico. I had a super match, but dude, I was so sick. Like I just don't know how to compete and not be sick. It's just
It's all the stress, man. It's all the stress.
could be. It could be. It could be. I don't know. I'm just tired of it. Yeah, it is what it is.
No, I completely get it, man. But hey, thank you so much for your time today. This was a great conversation. I'm forever grateful that we were able to cut it out of this
I
busyness on
know.
both of our lives, man. So, but I like to end the show with the same question every single time. If you could give a piece of advice to a brand new white belt, what would it be?
Oh man. Start looking at your positions and try to understand what's going on. Don't be so reactive. Be patient. Look at them, and you will have a much better journey if you focus on the fundamentals. My biggest mistake is when I came in the game, I saw a lot of one too many meow videos, and I was like trying to berimbolo everything out of everywhere, and that's not necessarily a fundamental technique. If you build strong fundamentals, you will have more fun in jiu-jitsu because you're not going to be getting smashed as much. That would be my advice: to focus on fundamentals.
Perfect. I love it. Where can people find you if they want to follow you and check out all your amazing content?
Jiu-Jitsu House on all platforms.
You have YouTube and TikTok also?
I do have to. That's actually where I kind of like grew a little bit in TikTok. But then someone told me, they're like, if you have a heavy following on TikTok and not on Instagram, it doesn't count. And I was like,
At least for jujitsu.
bet, I got you. So that's why I kind of I still post on TikTok occasionally, just not as much. I still have it. YouTube is just dude, I'm trying to not let social media be my life. Like
Yeah,
I'm really
I get it.
trying. And so like sometimes I'll go on and I'll drop content and then I'm done because even like as it is, like it takes time to edit these videos. I don't have an editing team. It's just me,
Same.
So if I post and I don't reply to comments, it's simply because I'm trying to not let social media be my life. So yes, I'll occasionally post on YouTube. But Instagram is gonna be definitely where to go. TikTok, yes, it's there, and yeah, don't bother me too much on Facebook, man. Like that's for my family, dude.
Perfect. All right. Well, friend request on Facebook sent right now. It's like, no. Well, hey, man, I greatly appreciate your time. Like I said, once again, this was a phenomenal conversation. It's super cool talking to a first responder, firefighter, and seeing your insight and everything like that. And then obviously with your heavy competition background, I'm sure people are going to find lots of value in this. And if you guys are still listening, don't forget to give me a 5-star review wherever you listen. Go check out Jiu-Jitsu House everywhere on social media. Go like his stuff. And I appreciate your time. So I'll catch you next time. Remember, no oil checks here. Peace.